Welcome to the Power Up Your Marriage and Business podcast. We're your hosts, Robert and Kaylee Fukui. I know we're supposed to say we created this podcast for you, but we really created this for us. Because one of the power struggles we witnessed growing up and now dealing with in the present is balancing the needs of the business with priorities of marriage. Does this sound familiar?
As children of entrepreneurs, we're often on the receiving end of that struggle. Parents worked so hard to provide that they did not have time for us. We realized it wasn't their fault. They did only what they knew. But not wanting to repeat the past, we've been intentional about building a business that we run as opposed to it running us.
Every day we fight to keep the priorities the priority: faith, family, and finance, or the business. Some think it's impossible, but we say it's possible. You just need to challenge the false belief that a successful business only comes at the sacrifice of your family. It doesn't have to happen that way, and we know we're not the only couple to think this way and achieve it.
If you listen to some of our past episodes and tune in for future ones, you will hear from some amazing marriage experts and entrepreneur couples that have been able to build a thriving marriage and prosperous business at the same time.
So that's why we created this podcast, to be in the front row and hear from others that have gone before us. And from time to time, we'll share what has worked for us as well. But we know there's more to learn and want to take you along for the ride with us. We may never get it perfect, but with intention, we can all build a thriving marriage and prosperous business. So thank you for listening. Sit back, get comfortable, and let's power up your marriage and business. All right, we are here with Bear and Cindy, and this is going to be fun, huh, honey?
I know, I'm so excited. I know I'm going to learn so much, honey.
I know, but we may or may not be on a tandem surfboard anytime soon.
No, I want to do the tandem surfboard. I want to get on your shoulders for sure.
So we officially met, Bear and Cindy, just before we hit record, but we're talking to some mutual friends of ours, Al and Tish Perez, out here in the Ventura area. And we're just about to release our book, Tandem, The Married Entrepreneur's Guide for Greater Work-Life Balance. And they brought up Bear and Cindy.
Yes.
The champion tandem surfers. And we're like, really? I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, see how you could put me on your shoulder, you could put me over your head.
So, and then just told us all about what you guys are up to. And we're like, well, we have to have them on our show. I mean, just the tandem piece itself. But certainly there's so much from that. And when, the more I got to, research a little bit about them and what they're doing, I mean, there's so much what they're doing. I was exhausted just reading about them. So really privileged to have them on, right, honey?
Yes.
So
it's going to be so
Bear
fun.
and Cindy, aloha from Waikiki, and thank you for being on.
Aloha.
Aloha. Good to be with you guys.
Yeah, these are one of those interviews I wish we were doing in person.
Well, yeah, because you're an island boy, so.
Yes, still got family.
Still
have family in Oahu, but of course I'd rather be there right now.
Right.
So first off, Bear, you're not the typical CPA.
I don't even like CPAs pretty much.
When I think of CPA, I'm like, I don't picture Bear.
No, it does not come to mind.
The name, of course, but then when you look at him, clearly he's, he looks like a man's man. He's buffed, and he's a surfer and all the, adventurer, all that stuff. And I'm like, so how did you become a CPA? I guess I got to ask.
The thing is I think it goes back to the old. There used to be this concept of the gentleman adventurer, and I knew when I was going to college that if I did this and started my own firm, I'd be able to do something that I love to do, and also have it be a cash cow so I can go do my adventures, and also, of course, raise a family up in the way that they deserve to be taken care of. So. It was just, I love what I do. I'm very fortunate to get to do what I do. I sold my big practice. I just have my kind of just a boutique firm, I say now, but I love doing my craft. But I also love the fact that I can, like the next adventure that we're going on is we'll be sailing in the Caribbean. Wow. And now with the Starlink system, I can have my laptop right there in the cockpit of the sailboat, and I can work a few hours every day. So why not? Why not do that? So
yeah, work and play.
Yeah, it's been really cool. I work really, really hard for 4 or 5 months of the year in my practice, and then I work a moderate amount of time the rest of the year, so that we can do our TV show, our radio show, we can do our travel adventures, and surf around the world and things like that. So it's a perfect, it's a balance, right?
Really.
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
Yeah,
we love
so
that.
Cindy, how do you keep that all a balance? Sounds like with all that going on.
It's a lot, but I don't know. We work as a team mostly.
And you have that adventurous spirit too.
Oh, I do. I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's always ready for the next thing. It's not fractured energy though. What we do is in balance. Everything is consistent. There's a certain consistency to what we do, whether it's our motorcycle TV show, or the Bear Woznick Adventure Radio show, or when we go speak, or when we're filming. Like when we film our motorcycle show, which we're now wrapping up. The last season is going to be airing soon. I just think of it as a point of the spear. Everything that we do is in line with our mission from God, which is our primary mission is to challenge men to be manly, to manly virtue. And can you tell them about? I mean, it's interesting how when we met, how the Lord put that on her heart.
I was going
too.
to ask, did you guys meet on a surfboard?
Yeah, tell them how we met.
Yeah. So let's start with a.
Well, I'll just say this. Okay, so
Tell me where to
so
start. I
she
don't know how
she
far
was
back.
caring for her mother who was dying of cancer, and a niece of hers mother died. So she was a caregiver. Really didn't have much of a life other than working and taking care of these people for about 8 years. But every Sunday she would go down to the beach in Cocoa Beach, drive in from Orlando where she lived, and she would surf and she would watch. She would just that was her place to kind of get ready for the rest of the week, right?
That's right.
And then one day you saw us tandem surfing.
That's right. I was just down there on Sunday morning. Sun was coming up, and next thing I know, a surf competition just broke out around me. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. I'll stay here and enjoy this. And then about 12 o'clock, the whole crowd just got up from one side of the pier and walked over to the other. And so I followed, and then I saw the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, tandem surf teams, one after another, like an army of strong men and beautiful women. It was amazing. They bring their large, massive boards down to the beach, and then I see them getting on the board together and paddling out, and I'm like, I've never seen that before. And then they catch a wave, and they're coming back towards the beach, and the man lifts the woman in this most beautiful expression. It just struck me as the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And so that evening I went home and told everybody in my household, there's this new thing called tandem surfing, and one day I'm going to do it.
Wow.
But really, it isn't new. It's probably been
That's true.
being done as long as surfing has been being done in Hawaii. And my friend Professor Pohaku says it's probably been being done for 1,500 years. It used to be how the women would select the man or vice versa. They'd get on the other person's surfboard. And at times, even the man would say, okay, and paddle to another island with her. So, so tandem, as long as there's been surfing, there's been tandem surfing. I just remember as a kid seeing it from the cliffs of Steamers Lane down in Santa Cruz. And I just always wanted to do that. But so she was in a place where that contest is the largest nonprofit event in the world. And so it was like thousands of people got up and went to the other side of the pier because there's 5 sets of judges and venues of surfing going on at the same time. The National Kidney Foundation in Cocoa Beach. And so she would come down whenever I would come into town because I was running the world tour at that time too. But we never met. And because she knew she couldn't try to tandem because she didn't have the time. But then about 7 years ago, I was in Cocoa Beach for another event, the Easter morning event, legendary Dick Catree's event. And Easter Sunday morning, you and your friend were there.
Yes.
I just gone to Sunrise Mass. Thousands of people in Florida, the beaches are just covered with worshipers from every sort of denomination for the Sunrise church services. And I went up to Cocoa Beach, and go ahead, you tell them what happened there.
Yeah, so I was surfing with a couple girlfriends, and just like the time before, we were up and in the water, watching the sun come up for dawn patrol, basically. It was a bit of a cold morning, and so we had just come out of the water, and we were walking down to the contest area because we were looking for coffee or hot chocolate or something to warm up with. And then I hear one of the announcers, that happens to be one of mine and Bear's good friends now, she says, well, Bear's here teaching tandem. Does anybody want to learn? And like something just struck me. I jumped up like a 5-year-old and said, pick me, pick me. And if you know me, I would never do something like that. That is so out of my nature or out of my character. And she goes, okay, you. And I'm like, oh no, she picked me. Because now I'm on the spot. I really have to try this and do this. And then I'm now, almost 8 or 9 years older than I was the first time I saw him tandem surf at that original contest. And so I'm thinking, oh no.
What have I got myself? And I look at her and I go, who is this chick jumping around, and she doesn't have she doesn't look like a surfer girl. She's very protective of her skin. She's probably never been in the water, and she's jumping around and I'm not usually, I'm just kind of discerning. But there was a guy there that had told me that he knew how to tandem. And so he needed the partner. So I coached them up on the beach a little bit, and we went out and did an exhibition. She thought she was going to surf with me, but she was surfing with this other guy. And I just kind of cut to the chase. They actually did a lift. I think he lifted you in his arms like this. But, the extreme lifts are like when a girl does a handstand, you lock wrists and she flips up and does a handstand and then does the splits and then dismounts, goes up and do another lift.
Yeah, you can do
There you
that.
go, honey. Yeah.
No, you'd have to do that.
Like that one right there, or this one. Yeah, this one here. She was so thrilled by this, so they wanted to become a team. And I was there, and I even had an apartment there because we were filming our TV show on the mainland. And so I would meet with them about twice a week, and they were struggling so much. And I knew she was athletic. I knew she could do this, but he was really struggling. And I'm trying to protect his dignity, as is she. But he kept falling on her and dropping her. Ooh. And the number one job of the tandem man is to protect the woman. Mm-hmm. But I saw her as so valiant, and she so much wanted to do it. So I got to see who she was, what kind of person she was. She was always being helpful, never criticizing, always just there 100%, for him. Mm. And then I finally talked to him and I said, you really shouldn't be surfing with her anymore. You need to go take surfing lessons from my world champion friend, or I shouldn't say world champion, but one of my champion friends, Gerard Middleton. When he gives you the green light that you can surf, then I'll let you tandem surf again. I'm not saying I was responsible. It wasn't my kuleana, but I pretty much put my foot down. You shouldn't be surfing with her. And then you had that same conversation with him. This is after about 2 months of them trying so hard.
Wow. That's
right, and you had the same conversation.
Yes.
And then you guys went down and you surfed again. She said, this is your last, let's try it one more time.
Yeah, because he took some lessons, so I thought, okay, well, let's try one more time. It's just, I had my heart set on tandem, and I figured one last chance wouldn't hurt. And then the same thing happened. He fell on me, and
the board.
I was push, like he falls on top of me, and then my body's, squished in between the board and him.
Yeah, but the board never got hurt.
Thank God for the board.
Yeah, she was okay. He was okay. But so go ahead.
Anyway, so I come out of the water, and he says I was crying. I don't really remember that, but I'm extremely disappointed because I know now that my opportunity to learn to tandem is over now. And so I'm basically letting go and giving up on it.
But she's not letting him see
That's true.
that she's tearing up, but she's walking away from him.
Yeah. And so then Bear calls me over to his board.
I just go like this, yeah.
He's in the water, and so I go over to him, and he says, well, just hop on my board and let's, let me take you out. And we went out, we caught 3 waves, and we did 3 different overhead lifts, and I was like, what just happened?
I wouldn't do that, but I warned that guy not to do that anymore. Right? So I didn't snake him. I told him, don't do it. Your number one job of the man is to protect the woman. But what's interesting is during that time, and then I asked her if she would compete with me in the next contest, which is about 6 more weeks. But I said, we're going into the house once to look at the video. I was trying to coach them. She held back for a minute, was on the phone with one of her girlfriends, and she walked into the house and she was really upset. This is when she was surfing with this other guy. And what happened?
So I was, on the phone with a friend who's husband of 20 years has cheated again, and she's just, her heart is just broken, and I'm just so angry at men for all these various reasons. And I just, which again I don't normally do, I just was so frustrated. I said, one of these days somebody's going to teach men to be men again. Like right in front of Bear and this other guy, and Bear looks at me like, whoa.
Well, it's like she didn't know. She just thought I was a surfer, dude. I don't. She really didn't know anything about me other than I was a surfer, And so I said, "You really don't know what I do you?"
I had no idea.
So then I showed her, my job is to teach men to be manly, manly virtue. Yeah. And so it was like the Lord hit her with, I would say, an anointing at that moment. So she was fully 100% all in when we began to compete, and then we began to date of what I do. It wasn't like something I added on to my life that she didn't know about or wasn't wanting to be a part of. She was totally all in, and so we began to practice together, and then we totally dominated the contest after only 6 weeks.
Oh wow!
One of the cool things that happened at that event, by the way, is my whole life I always wanted to jump out of a helicopter into a surf contest. I never heard of anybody ever doing it. For some reason, it was in my mind. I wanted to do that. And we're sitting on the beach waiting for our heat, which is a couple hours away. And they go, "Hey, you want to jump out of a helicopter into the surf contest?" I go, "Well, yeah." So I diver and all that stuff too. So she was ready for it. So we went and got on one of this little yellow helicopter, and they hovered about 30 feet over the water. And when you see us jumping out of the helicopter, well, the heat was about to start. All the competitors were in the water. This is the finals. And they're all like, "All right, they're not here. We're going to win." But my son was out in the water by himself with my tandem board. And so we jumped in. And that was kind of like our leap that we do all the time. We take that leap of faith and we do the next thing. And it's kind of like when you're being led by the Holy Spirit. At first, as you start being led by the Holy Spirit, you're not sure if it's God or not. Sometimes he squeezes you out of situations like toothpaste out of a toothpaste container, but he really and sometimes he shouts, "This is the way, follow it." But most of the time he wants us to just listen to that still small voice. But in time, as you listen and you do, and you get that batting practice in, you learn to hear that still small voice and follow the Lord. And we always seem to know what the next thing is. But when we surf together on a tandem surfboard, there's so much to it that is consistent with the way a man and a woman are meant to be together, that complementarity, that the way the Lord made us. Yeah. And it's interesting, when I've run these world tours, a lot of the teams, over half the teams are actually couples, married. And a lot of the people that I've taught, I've said, "You and her would be a really good tandem team." Now they're married with children, many.
So if you're single,
Bear will set you up.
Learn tandem
First,
and go
all on
Bear.
a girl. I call it. I warn them. You're going to think you're in love because she's thrilled because she's doing something thrilling with you. But it's not. It's tandem love. It may not be real love. It's called tandem love. But as I got to know her and how valiant she was, and we began to surf together, I just saw this is a real rare woman. I had a life where I'd been through a tough divorce, and as a Catholic, received an annulment, but it was torturous, and so I was a very happy person pursuing my life, really pretty much saying, "I'm not going to let a woman mess up my life again. I would love to share my happiness with someone, but only if she's a strong woman." And so I found that strong woman. She's strong, and she's courageously happy. She chooses to be joyful. And so on a surfboard, the man is the captain of the ship. You can't have two captains.
Right.
I've surfed with women that are much better surfers than me. World champion Mary Osborne, one of the best surfers in the world. But when we tandem surf, I've had to actually teach her to close her eyes. While we're paddling and we're getting up, and before we lift, just close your eyes. Because if you take over the surfboard isn't going to know who to believe. So you really can't have two captains of the ship, even though she's a better surfer than me, right? But the man chooses the wave. Because I'm the one whose feet are going to be connected to the board. I'm the one who's going to have to deal with the wave that we're going to be surfing. And so, we see this beautiful picture of Cindy and I going for a wave. A friend of ours captured this picture. And we're paddling with all the grit and all of our might to catch a wave. And she's got this joyful determination on her face. And so when you catch a wave, you're almost always paddling with all your strength. But we get up. But the way we get up is I have to get up first. If she gets up first, she's in my way. Because she's laying in front of me. And I'm actually laying with her. She has her legs open. I'm laying up against her between her legs so that we're a tight unit so that the board doesn't think there's two people, right?
That's right.
So as I get up and then she gets up after I do, but when you're really good at it, it's like you're getting up as one person. And then I set my balance on the board, and then her feet come between my 2 feet. Because she's not keeping balance on the board, that's my job. If she tries to balance the board, we get out of whack. She puts her back against my chest, like John did at the Last Supper. And she puts her cheek against my cheek, just like when couples dance together, so she can feel what I'm doing and flow with me. So her knees are slightly bent, but not stiff, so she can flow with me. And then if we're dropping in and we're doing a hard, hitting the lip, and I have to come back down, she knows she can throw her body back downwards to pull me back on the board. So she's surfing with me. She's not just flowing with me, she's surfing, and she's actively resting in me and flowing with
That's
me.
true.
But then there comes that moment when it's time for me to lift her. And a lot of times I like to lift her as we're dropping in. And that means as she's getting up, she's pirouetting and staying close to me so I can grab her by the hips. I squeeze them, push down, and she goes down, up, and explodes with all of her might up into the lift. So there's this resting against me. As we know, one of the key elements of Scripture is to rest in the Lord. But faith also has to leap. It's 2 parts. And so when she leaps, at that moment, I have to, as the man, inspire trust in her. I shouldn't expect it. Mm-hmm. I have to inspire in her that I'm going to protect her and I'm going to take care of her. And there's really only one time with me that you've been where you paid your price. That was our last contest.
Yes.
Yeah, I just come out of having a hip muscle reattached because I had hoolied my canoe, and it ripped a muscle in my hip loose, part of it, so they had to reattach it. So the doctor said, you're not allowed to surf for all this time. And finally I said, well, can I go out and just stand up, paddle surf, go straight? They go, okay. Well, 10 days later, we surfed 17-foot, 16-foot faces. And our board, my really good competition board in Hawaii, someone borrowed it. Like in Hawaiian language, there used to not be a word for steal. It'd just be borrow without asking. But they never brought it back. So I had my backup board, which is not a big wave tandem board, had a flat surface. So when we dropped in on these really critical waves, it would just spank the bottom of when we bottomed out, it would stall it. So anyway, we had I would say a spectacular wipeout.
Yeah, we did.
And so you got injured that time. But
Lily,
all
you said something about inspiring trust. So I wanted to kind of go back a little bit with Cindy, because she had obviously didn't have a great experience with the first partner. Mm-hmm. How did you? I mean, because I could see at first, you're trusting the guy, but time after time, he's dropping you. How did you? How did you keep trusting him? But then also, even after that, to Bear, even though obviously he's good, but still you have these bad experiences. How did you continue to trust your first partner and then even start to trust Bear?
Well, the first partner, I was a brand new tandem person myself, and I trusted him because I was told, or I believed, that he was a surfer, that he had been surfing for many years and that he was a tandem surfer. So, and I didn't know any different, so I trusted his word. And then that is interesting, though, somewhere around, the 3rd or 4th week, something inside me said, there's something wrong, and I didn't question his ability to surf or to, be the captain of the ship, so to speak. I was focused on what I needed to do and learn. And so after I felt like I had all the things that I needed to learn in order, then I turned a little bit and started focusing on, him. And I realized that I knew that he couldn't turn left. He couldn't even turn his head left, like he had some sort of like, in his neck or his shoulder that was all locked up or something. And then I just realized after paying attention to, the wave selection and some of the other things that he was doing, that he didn't really know much about surfing. And so I actually had a conversation with Bear about it, and him, both of them, separately. And, tried to figure out the situation. And then, I don't know, I wanted to learn to tandem with all my heart. And so I just, hoped and prayed and, had faith that we could do it.
And you knew with me you would be safe.
Well, I had been watching Bear for a million years, and I'd Googled him 1,000 times, and all the other tandem teams too. So I knew he had the skill.
But it goes back to that thing about the tandem team and the complementarity of it. And I know, like saying, like in relationship to marriage isn't 1 + 1 = 2, right? It's a unitary mathematical equation. 1 × 1 = 1. Like the 3 persons of the Trinity, 3 persons with one nature. 1 × 1 × 1 = 1. But in a relationship, especially in marriage, if you have a one person is able, first of all, to give themselves to a marriage, some people aren't, and is all in and giving themselves, because we define love as self-donation and willing the true good for the other. In this situation with her ex-partner, it was 1 × 0 = 0. And I've been in a marriage like that, where the church said she wasn't able to be in a marriage, and she wasn't giving herself to the marriage. And 1 × 0 = 0, they're saying, if what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. But the question is, did God put this together? But with Cindy, in the way we function in every area of our life, it's so cool to get something hard to put together in a box, from Amazon, and how we work together to put it together, or how we wash the car together, or how we surf together, or how we travel together. There's just this 1 × 1 = 1 complementary strengths, and flowing together and yielding to one another, and so it takes that 2 people that are healthy people and who are all in to make that work, whether it's a marriage or tandem surfing or working together in a business. What we do together in a business is I have my kuleana, I know what I'm good at, and there's lots of stuff I'm not. Like when we travel, oh my gosh, it's so cool when we travel. I'm working, and I look and, there's my Vegas. She knows exactly what I need, what my wardrobe is, and what books I should be bringing to sell, whatever, and when we're loading up things, I don't know how to say it. And our home is so in order and so right, and it's so easy for me to focus on my kuleana, what I do best. See, kuleana, in Hawaiian, it means more than just responsibility or stewardship. It's where we get our dignity, is by the work that we do. Work is very special. Jesus said, even now the Father and I, we work. It's meant to be a wonderful blessing. It's only because of the fall that we have to do it in toil. But even in that toil, that's our participation in the sufferings of Christ. And so it's redemptive when we toil and work is hard and the Microsoft software wants to update your computer right when you have an interview or something. That toiling part, but the working together, work is a blessing. And Cindy does her work. I don't know how to say it, but she just, when someone comes over, before you know it, there's something on the table and there's this beautiful hospitality. She knows how to take care of our friends who have birthdays coming up. The home is always something new and special is happening in the home. And when we travel together, we're just such a team. And she takes care of our web store and all of those sorts of things. So she's totally all in and productive. And then when I write, she gives her input to what I'm writing. And you win beneath my wings. When I'm facing so much adversity in this world, when you talk about the manly virtue, there's a lot of cancel type stuff going on, and there's a lot of buffeting that goes on. She's so all in with me. When I go someplace and I experience a buffeting, she reads my mail. I mean, she literally reads my soul, and she can say, "What you're doing, this was what is happening. This is what was right about what you're doing. You may need to adjust in this area." Or this person here, when they said that, they wanted something more from you. You need to get back to them and give them something deeper than. It wasn't just a surface question. It was a surface question, but that their need was deeper than that. So I don't know how you would say it, but
yeah, I was gonna say Cindy sounds like she's your chief counsel. So I was gonna ask
yes,
Cindy, how did you guys learn to work with each other? I understand this on the surf, but then even at home and in business and all that, how did you guys find that? How you worked, how you complement each other, Cindy, and yeah, tell us a little bit more about where you feel your strength is in the marriage and how you support the whole team.
I feel like, Bear's likes being the world champion surfer, and then having his business, a CPA business, for all these years. He's been doing it and he has like all these systems in place. And as soon as I learned, what helps him get things done to the best of his ability and at the pace he likes to go and the time he likes to work, it just becomes easy. I just, automatically fall in and just, we call it surfing through the day together. We surf through the day together. So.
And I know she likes Starbucks between 12 and 1.
That's
cold,
true.
Iced Starbucks.
It's my one request.
It's not even what she likes, it's what she needs, and now it's what I need too.
That's true.
And I know in the morning we get up. In the morning I'm up at 5 working, and when she kind of has her very slow start to the day, we go down to the beach and we have coffee and we have our morning prayer time there, and we start our day together every day like that.
I'll go back just a minute to, you were asking me earlier about how does the tandem surfer inspire trust and the confidence. Well, just from the moment I met Bear, just standing next to him, he's full of confidence, and it's not kind of confidence, it's 100%. And just like as soon as I'm on the board with him and he moves one way or gives me one word command, and I'm like, I know exactly what to do and when to do it, because he's so good at teaching and so confident, and every wave is different. I'm so surprised constantly. How can he do that? How does he know that? How does he, how can he see that? How can he read that? And he's dead on every time.
You know what it's like, though? Thank you,
It's
honey.
beautiful.
But it's like I'm really good at, because the thing about surfers is we fall more than little children, than toddlers.
It's true.
Surfers fall.
Yeah.
And so we have that humility of always wanting to learn something more. You don't really get to, failure is a really, really important. I'm also a ninja black belt and trained a lot, have teaching certificates in different martial arts. And whenever anybody's doing something, like if you try to teach someone to surf and they'd ride it perfectly the first time, they really didn't learn anything. They don't even know what they did right. Like you get on the golf course and you get that golfing. Who can't golfing? You're just hitting the ball with and it goes 250 yards on your first time. Your life is ruined because you're never going to do that again till you make a lot of mistakes. And so failing is really a huge part of why I can confidently surf, because I fell a lot and I learned a lot. And so when I'm teaching someone to tandem, the intricacy of that is as intricacy as a ninja martial arts move, the subtlety of it. But I've learned that by doing things the wrong way. If you do it this way, if you just move your hand from here to here, well, from here to here can be a huge difference when you do a lift or when you do a martial arts move. So, but learning, being willing to fail is super important. And as a CPA, I only work with small businesses, and I'm not advertising. I don't take any more new clients, but I only work with small businesses. And when they come in with a great business idea, I'm really good at identifying their gifts and abilities pretty quickly. But I always ask them, so what business have you failed at before? And if they haven't, then it's like, I got to be careful here. Because they'll tend to focus on the minutia, They'll tend to focus on the administrative. I'm going to get my bank account set up. I'm going to get my logo done. I'm going to do this. But what about selling? How are you going to sell your product? So things like that. So unless someone has failed at a business, they don't really know business. And so just as a couple's working together, it's really important to give each other room to fail and to learn. Because until you fail, you haven't learned anything. Mm-hmm. And so that's why when we surf together, she can be confident in me because I've fallen a lot.
Just not on her.
Honey, trust me, I've fallen a lot.
Nothing humbles you faster. I remember so many great memories, but I remember dropping in on this pretty big wave. And I would mostly stand-up paddle surf unless it's 16 feet and above. We're either tandem surfing or stand-up paddle surfing. So when you're dropping in on a big wave, you lean so far forward on the board that your nose seems to almost touch the nose of the board. It doesn't, but you're leaning and pulling so far forward with all your might to get that board to drop in because the offshore breeze is making the wave curl. It's tubing it. It's holding it so it won't break, so the wave's going to be more hollow. You're dropping in. There was this catamaran sailing out through the channel next to me. So it's deep water 40 feet away from me, but where I am, it's shallow reef. And they're coming out as I'm dropping in, and I go, oh, these people are going to think I'm a god, So as I'm dropping in, my paddle breaks. Ooh. And I skip across my board, then I skip across the face of the wave. So God has a way of keeping you humble, especially when you're in a surfing or if you're in a public.
So you're puffing up your chest and your peacock feathers are going.
I've had more humiliating moments than that in public, but yeah. So God keeps you humble, but without failing, you really don't have it. You have to be willing to do the daring thing. God, the virtue of fortitude, coraggio, and the four cardinal virtues of prudence, justice, self-mastery, fortitude. People think of people that are of fortitude or coraggio, courage, as being antithetical to prudence. Like you're either prudent or you're bold. They go together because you don't need prudence if you're not going to be bold. When I learned to fly an airplane, I had my checklist. When we learned to skydive, we had our pre-jump checklist. The virtue of prudence goes along with boldness. You don't need to be prudent if you're not going to be bold. And if you're a Christian, guess what? God wants you to be bold. That's the nature of a Christian. And so in your business, you're taking risks, but you need to calculate those risks. You need to be prudent. You need to check in with each other. If we do this is going to be the personal cost to us of our time, our energy, our finances. New people might be brought into our lives. Are we going to trust them? Are we going to need employees? So God wants you to be bold, but you have to. Prudence is called the charioteer of the virtues. So you've got these strong virtues of boldness and self-mastery and faith, hope, and love, but prudence is supposed to guide that. So those people who are involved in business, especially with your spouse, make sure prudence is guiding that, keeping things in balance and taking appropriate risks.
Yeah, and that's where discerning each other's gifts, as you guys seem like you've done very well. Because one person is going to be tend to be more the risk taker, and the other one is going to be more prudent. And so you need that. You need all of it, right? And you need all of it. It's like the thing. I see the vision. I see where we need to go, but at the same time, there's the practicality of the analysis, but there's also the discernment. There's all the gifts, right? If you want to put it into Christian terms, all the spiritual gifts need to be wrapped up in one, so that the two of you can walk together. And that's the beauty of a marriage, is because you both have complementary gifts. And in too many times we see them rub against each other wrong, though, in some of the marriages and the couples that we deal with.
And the other thing is that, well, the other thing about that, we just are always yielding to each other. And I when I talk to men, I said, the Lord wants to speak to you in that still small voice. Maybe it's her voice.
Yeah.
And she may not be. You want to say something? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's this voice that you need to listen to more than anything, because God wants to speak to you, but He's involved in that covenant of the man, the woman, and Him, and so He's choosing not to speak to your heart, but to speak to you through her, so that thrice wound cord can be made more strong. Mm-hmm. So if you're not listening to your spouse, you're missing out on what God is saying. God wants to the other thing about working together is we know we play together too. And when it's playtime, we don't talk about work. The problem with couples working together is it bleeds over into their whole life, and then their whole life is a business. And I didn't marry you to go into business with you, you know.
Right.
So when it's work time, it's work time. But we know, pauhana, right, in Hawaii, pauhana means finish work. It means happy hour. Get the Heineken out.
Or the Oli
good
back in the
Hawaiian
day.
beer. All Hawaiians drink. But what we play also, you know. We'll go out and put on country western music on a little box and go golf together, or we're walking on the beach together. We walk to our little swimming hole and swim and play in the waves, or we surf. But when it's playtime, we don't ever talk about work.
Nope.
That's good.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, that's good. That's
That
always.
can be challenging.
Yeah,
And play is important. Playing
Oh,
together
my
is very
gosh.
important.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's big on our list. I mean, we love to travel.
Have fun.
And yeah, that's what we noticed, you know, with the married entrepreneurs, they just forgot how to play.
With each
Yeah.
other. It's kind of sad.
And then life was just a grind, right?
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah,
Even if
why
you
would you
enjoy-
want to live like that?
Yeah, even if you enjoy your work, and we enjoy our work, but still, it's still work, right? And
Right.
having that time to decompress and not talk about work and just enjoy each other, not from a business level, but from a personal level, it's important.
There's that type of work. You know, the one thing God told us to strive for is to work really, really, really hard. It says, strive to enter into God's rest. So you got to work hard at resting.
That seems to be the hardest thing for people to say. I always tell my clients, I'm like, you realize rest is one of the 10 commandments, but it's the one we all violate.
Yeah. Well, it's basically saying that I'm God and you're not. That
Right.
I have to do this because God,
Exactly.
you can't prepare, you can't make the way for our business, you can't bring the right resources to us. I have to work this hard because I'm God and you're not, and you won't provide for us or lead us or guide us.
Exactly.
So R-E means recognize God as God and you're not, and the S-T from that is the last two letters of trust. Recognize God as God and you're not. Trust in Him so you can rest. It's one of the major things of Scripture is the promised land of rest.
Yeah, that's good. You kind of touched upon this early on, and as we kind of wrap up here, I want to finish up on this, you know, especially with your ministry about men, and kind of mentioned it early on. It's, you know, the society these days have kind of demasculated men, as you know, and there's just kind of a distorted view of what a man should be now and then what it used to be. So speak to us about that, because, I mean, it's so, yeah, I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but so I'm actually, yeah, just speak to us about that, about what does it mean to be a man?
You want me to?
Husband.
Yes, of course.
Well, first of all, in my ministry, I don't use the word masculine anymore. That's been taken away. I use the word manly, and it's interesting how that resonates with some people and it angers other people. But what do you want a man to be, Cindy? Cindy likes men. When we were in Ireland,
Thank God for that.
No.
when we were in Ireland, she says, these are men. And when she's in Hawaii, she says the same thing.
That's true. I can recognize a man, I guess. I don't know. That they're different. You know, it's a different, you know, they have a different way about them. But mostly I just think that the man today needs to be bold enough to ask a woman out and should have a work ethic. Should, if he's going to father a child, be a father to that child and have the ability to, you know, figure out how to marry a woman and stay married to her.
There's a verse that was spoken to Joseph, Saint Joseph, that rugged, manly, you know, he was a mason probably, not a carpenter, because there's no wood in Israel. No house is made out of wood in Israel. They were masons, Jesus and his dad. And the Lord said to Moses, do not be afraid to take Mary to you as your wife. Men are cowards, absolute cowards. They won't. When I go out and speak, we get surrounded by the women, even though I'm there to speak to the men. Tell men to be men again. They don't ask us out. If they do, they date us and don't ask us to marry them. If they do ask us to marry them, we don't set the date. If we do get married, we don't have children. And these are just cowardly men. The most cowardly man in the world says these words to a woman. Oh, you're pregnant. Well, I'm going to support you whatever you decide. That's just the biggest cowardly push away that a man can have. I've had women share with me things they've never shared with anybody, and I've asked them a question about abortion, for example. If there was a man in your life, a father, an uncle, or the father of this child that would stood by you, would you have kept your baby? Yes. So I'm sorry, I'm a Catholic, so I'm going to say it like it is. Birth control pills, condoms, that's a coward. Love is self-donation. Love and responsibility go together. They're not. You don't say to a girl, I really love you. Why don't we live together for a while? How many people are you going to church today are living together and not married? That's a coward's way. Let's test it. If something bigger, better deal comes along, I can get rid of you. So men need to man up. Young boys, the only way a boy becomes a man is by taking on responsibility. And the responsibility, John Paul II wrote, his first thing he wrote, the title of the first thing he ever wrote was Love and Responsibility. This was, I think, actually in a play that he wrote. Long time ago. Love and responsibility go hand in hand. You can't love without having a sense of responsibility. Because like we said, love is willing the true good through self-donation. So my thing for men is, first of all, how you treat women defines you. How you treat your sisters, how you treat the women in the workplace, how you treat the woman you're going to marry, that pretty much defines you as a person in my book. So check that out. How do you treat women? Men need to be dangerous. Men need to have a sense, when you're around a real man, you should know that there's a certain line I better not cross with him. It might be he might be, even to be physically dangerous. You should know this is a man, and I might be able to beat the crap out of him, but I'm gonna pay a dear price if I mess with his wife or mess with his children or mess with something. So I think a man should have a certain ability to be trained in a martial art. He should be physically fit. The average obesity rate in manhood, I looked this up yesterday, was 12% 30 years ago. Now it's closer to 40%. Men need to be fit so that if there's a physical situation takes place, they have the stamina to outlast the other person. Most fights end within a minute because one of them gets too tired. Also, I need to have the stamina to sit at my desk and work hours that needs to be done, or have the stamina to say, I've worked 8 hours now, honey, let's go out and have a drink together. Men need to be fit. Men need to be dangerous. Men need to protect women. Men need to have a vision. They know, what is my purpose in life? God made you not just in general, but God made you, He infused you with a spiritual, rational soul at the moment of your conception. Even if it was a conception in the worst situation, like in a rape, God chose this unique set of gifts and talents and abilities and a spiritual soul that you could commune with Him, so you could come close to Him and know that you're made imago Dei, you're made in His image. That's what defines you. And what is your purpose? What with these gifts and abilities, how does God want to use you? And then a man should have a plan. He should have a purpose. I'm going to do this in my work. I'm going to do this in my physical life, in my mental life, in every area of my life. He should have that. And for me, I love the verse Habakkuk. I read it when I was 19 years old. Write this vision down so that the one who's running can read it while they're running. So write down, be specific, hold yourself to high standards. So, my new book, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone? 12 Rules of Manliness. There's only 12, so there's got to be a part 2 to it. But just if you just understand the 4 virtues: justice, self-mastery, bridle your passions. Pornography is a huge issue with all the way from young boys up through all ages. Men need to defeat that. That's the battle for most men of our day. Because when you do that, you're a boy. St. Thomas Aquinas defined the effeminate man as one who just seeks pleasure. If you're going that route to find pleasure instead of seeking the responsibilities of actually loving a real woman, you're a coward. So I could go on and on, but we need for men to take a stand, to know who they are, and not just take a stand for themselves. Think about in Nehemiah when they rebuilt the breach in the wall. it talks about how this man and his family rebuilt the wall from here to here, from here to here. It's the domestic church, the man and his family, that needs to rebuild this wall, that's the breach in the wall that we see being torn down. And I tell men, you know what? The breach in the wall goes right through your living room. So you need to lead by example. You can't come home and just yell at the TV and give your opinions and think that makes you a leader. Being a leader is you have to lead by example. So I'll kind of... Awesome. It's kind of good. My computer's about to die, I guess. But men need to stand up. They need to champion a cause that's bigger than them, something that they have to grow to become, and take care of these women and these children. Love them the way they deserve to be loved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is to be a servant to them.
Yeah.
Not to be some macho.
Cindy, I can see why you married this guy, right? He's a man. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, this has been amazing.
Yes.
Just a lot of great metaphors, analogies, and just examples and just practical stuff that we all should take as couples, but also as men and as women, really.
Right.
So thank you for being on. I've got some of the links in here, but make sure I put the books in your new book. But how would you best like for people to follow you or even contact you? If that's
deepadventure.com is our website. Deepadventure.com is also my email, so bear@deepadventure.com. Our website is Bear Woznick Deep Adventure. Our YouTube is Bear Woznick Deep Adventure. And we have our TV show is on Prime Video. Long Ride Home with Bear
so
Woznick.
we're gonna have to turn that on.
And it's on EWTN every I think it's every Tuesday night. It's on the regular cable networks too, and the radio shows. So.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We love what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Oh,
We
this
love
is
what you guys are
great.
doing,
Yes.
and hopefully we get to connect. And well, not
We
even just
wanna see
Hawaii
them.
because you're out. It seems like you're traveling anyway. So look us up. We're in Pasadena. But Bear and Cindy, thank you for being on. You've been such a blessing to
Yes,
us.
this has
and
been
the audience.
great.
Thank you. So you've been listening this far, which means I know you've been blessed by this episode. So please share this with somebody you know that needs to hear this, and and then leave us a review.
Yes, that'd
So-
be great. Thank you so much.
God bless everyone, and we'll talk to you next week.
Aloha.
Thank you for listening to the Power Up Your Marriage and Business podcast. If you found this episode to be valuable, please leave a rating and share it with an entrepreneur couple you know.
Yes, and remember to hit the subscribe button so that you'll get all of our latest episodes, and visit our website, Power Couples by Design, to access a variety of free resources to help your marriage and business, like our weekly videos and on-demand webinars. And don't forget to download our free 8-step guide that you can find on our homepage to help your marriage and business thrive.
We're here to help you build a thriving marriage and a prosperous business. God bless your marriage and business. See you next week.